The night settled over the forest like a velvet curtain, shadows stretching long and silent between the towering pines. A silver mist curled around the roots, glimmering faintly under the pale moonlight. Among the trees, she moved with careful, measured steps, light enough not to disturb the underbrush, quiet enough not to draw attention. To anyone watching, she was nothing more than the timid omega of the pack, unremarkable, submissive, easily overlooked. But that was the mask she wore, the one she had perfected over years. Her heartbeat thudded steadily in her chest, a rhythm she tried to suppress, though the faint quiver in her fingertips betrayed the truth. She was not entirely powerless. The moment her eyes flicked toward the moon, a subtle shimmer danced in her irises, fleeting as a whisper of silver light. She swallowed, forcing herself to focus on the forest path ahead, pretending that the sensation, the tug of something ancient and wild within her, was simply the night's chill. From the shadows, a presence watched. She didn't know who it was, only that a pair of eyes followed her with a scrutiny that made her skin prickle. Most pack members glanced at her without a second thought. They assumed she belonged at the edges where she was safest. But this watcher, quiet, unseen, sensed the tremor of something hidden. Careful where you wander. A voice murmured, low and edged with curiosity, yet not threatening. She startled, spinning, but the voice had no face to match it. Only the wind answered, rustling leaves. Her pulse quickened. She forced a laugh that came out too soft, almost breathless, just enjoying the night. She said, her tone trembling just enough to convince anyone she was fragile. Anyone, that is, but not this unseen observer. The forest was her refuge, but also her cage. She had learned to hide, to bend without breaking, to let the world see what it wanted. A weak omega, harmless and compliant. And yet, beneath that carefully constructed facade, something ancient stirred, coiled tight like a spring ready to leap. She had no control over it yet, but she felt it, pulsing with the moonlight, demanding recognition. A snap of a twig behind her made her freeze. Her eyes flicked toward it, pupils narrowing instinctively. The stranger, still unseen, did not move. Instead, the presence lingered, heavy and attentive, as if weighing her very soul. A thrill ran through her at the idea of being truly seen, yet fear laced it, a fear she couldn't show. The night deepened, shadows growing longer, the silver mist curling around her feet like silent tendrils. She continued along the path, mask firmly in place, hiding the storm within. But for the first time in years, she felt it, the stirrings of something dangerous, something powerful, and someone waiting to notice it. Her chest tightened with anticipation. She was careful, quiet, invisible, and yet tonight the moon was whispering her secret. The pack's clearing was alive with murmurs and shuffling paws as the members gathered for the weekly council. The scent of damp earth and pine mixed with the sharp tang of anticipation, a familiar rhythm that pulsed through every shifter's senses. She stepped carefully among the crowd, head bowed, hands folded. Every muscle in her body screamed to run, to vanish into the trees, but she remained, Omega mask firmly in place. From the corner of her vision, he appeared, the Alpha, broad, shouldered, eyes like liquid gold, aura radiating authority that made the hairs on her neck rise. He didn't look at her, or rather, he tried not to, but the subtle shift in his gaze betrayed curiosity, a spark of recognition he refused to name. She froze briefly, heart hammering. Every fiber of her being whispered caution. Do not let him see anything, not yet. Come forward, Mira. The Alpha commanded, voice deep and steady, carrying over the murmurs like a blade through silk. She obeyed, steps hesitant, each one echoing her fear. Your patrol reports are incomplete, he said, eyes scanning her like he could see straight through the mask she had worn for so long. Careless work, Omega. She bowed her head, hiding the quickening pulse in her throat. I apologize, Alpha, she murmured, voice barely audible over the wind that rustled the trees beyond the clearing. Her mind raced. He suspects. I can feel it, but he must not know the truth. Something in the way he studied her made her chest tighten. She could almost hear the unspoken question hovering in the space between them. Who are you really? The Alpha's gaze lingered, sharp and calculating, and she felt a shiver that wasn't entirely fear. There was intrigue there, a pull she hadn't expected, an energy that drew her toward him despite the walls she had built around her heart. A low murmur ran through the pack. Others whispered about the tension between them, unaware of the electric current that pulsed in that charged silence. She forced herself to blink, to remind herself of her role. The mask must not slip. Not now. You may leave, he said at last, his voice final, but his eyes. They didn't follow her as she backed away. They lingered like molten gold burning into her soul. She could feel it even as she melted into the shadows at the edge of the clearing. Alone in the trees, she exhaled shakily. Her chest burned from the intensity of his gaze. Curiosity, power, something unspoken, something that recognized her secret without a word being uttered. The moon peeked through the clouds, casting silver streaks across her hair. She touched her throat, where her pulse still raced, and whispered to herself, I cannot let him know, not yet. Yet deep inside, a tiny, unbidden thrill whispered back, he already does. A rustle in the underbrush reminded her she was still being watched. The night, the forest, the Alphen, none of it was as safe as she had believed. And perhaps, for the first time in her life, she didn't want it to be. The morning sun struggled through the dense canopy, spilling fragmented light across the pack's training grounds. She moved quietly along the edge, pretending to stretch, her hands brushing the rough bark of a nearby tree as if grounding herself in something ordinary. But every instinct in her body remained alert, ears twitching at the faintest murmurs, eyes scanning the gathering pack. Whispers reached her first as she passed the older Omegas, low voices carrying just enough for her to hear. Did you see her last night? I heard she glowed, like the full moon itself. That's forbidden magic, they say, dangerous. Her stomach tightened, a knot of fear and frustration forming. Every day, it seemed, someone found a new rumor, a new reason to question her place among them. She clenched her fists, forcing herself to breathe, to appear small and harmless, the Omega mask she had worn so convincingly for years. And yet, the whispers had a strange effect, a spark deep in her chest, like a pulse of something she could not fully control. Power, they are afraid of what I might become. Her eyes flicked involuntarily toward the clearing where the Alpha observed the pack. His presence was magnetic, commanding. Even at a distance, she felt the pull, the unspoken scrutiny. He noticed things others didn't. The way she moved, the slight tension in her shoulders, the tiny flicker in her eyes whenever the moonlight caught them. One of the younger betas, emboldened by the whispers, stepped too close. You're hiding something, aren't you? He said, a smirk tugging at his lips. Everyone knows there's more to you than you admit. She forced a laugh, soft and trembling. I'm just an Omega, she said, bowing her head, hiding the sudden flare of irritation that burned along her skin. Nothing more. But the words rang hollow even to her ears. Nothing more. Yet everything inside me screams otherwise. From the corner of her vision, the Alpha moved closer, his stride deliberate, silent. She felt his gaze slice through the murmurs, settling on her like a weight she could not shrug off. A part of her wanted to run, to vanish into the shadows where no one could see the storm behind her mask. Yet another part, a reckless, daring part, wanted him to see, to know, to recognize her for what she truly was. He stopped a few paces away, eyes narrowing slightly, lips pressed into a thin line. Whispers travel fast, he said quietly, voice low but cutting. Be careful how much you let them shape you. Her breath caught. Did he know, or is he simply testing me? She bowed, keeping her face carefully neutral. Yes, Alpha, she murmured. Inside, her pulse raced, not with fear alone, but with something dangerous, thrilling. The pack continued around them, oblivious, but the air between them had shifted. The Alpha's gaze lingered just long enough for her to feel it in her bones. The forbidden tension, the magnetic pull, the unspoken acknowledgement of something neither dared name aloud. And for the first time she wondered, was it just the whispers that were dangerous or him? The forest was quiet, too quiet, as if the night itself was holding its breath. Moonlight filtered through the canopy, pale and silvery, casting shifting shadows across the forest floor. She moved carefully, barefoot on the damp earth, feeling the pulse of the pack's territory beneath her. Tonight, she had to be alone. Tonight, She had to face the part of herself she had hidden for so long. Her heartbeat quickened as she reached a small clearing, moonlight pooling like liquid silver around her. She closed her eyes, inhaling the crisp night air, letting it fill her lungs. The transformation she had felt stirring for weeks. It demanded release, and she could no longer resist. A tremor ran through her body, subtle at first, a ripple beneath her skin, then stronger, insistent, undeniable. Her breath caught in her throat, her muscles tensing as an unfamiliar energy surged through her veins. Her fingers brushed against the ground, and the soil seemed to hum beneath her touch, responding to her presence. And then her eyes. They glowed, not the faint shimmer of a secret kept, but a fierce, silver blaze that reflected the full moon itself. She staggered backward, awe and fear mingling in her chest. She was no longer the fragile Omega she had pretended to be. She was something else entirely, something powerful, something untamed. From the shadows, a voice broke the night. Low, steady, unyielding. Mira. Her eyes snapped open. The Alpha stood at the edge of the clearing, golden gaze locked onto hers. His presence sent a shiver down her spine, an electric thrill she could neither deny nor control. She had thought she was alone, thought the mask could remain unbroken, but he had seen everything. She began, but words failed her. The moonlight poured across her hair, silvering it, and she realized there was no hiding now. He stepped closer, cautious yet impossible to resist. Do you understand what you are showing me? His voice was a growl, low and deliberate, carrying both awe and warning. She shook her head, chest tight. I didn't mean you can't hide this. He interrupted, eyes never leaving hers, not from me, not from anyone. Her pulse raced, fear and exhilaration tangled within her. This was the moment she had dreaded and longed for exposure, reckoning, and the undeniable pull of his presence all at once. A flicker of doubt crossed his face, fleeting but undeniable, yet beneath it lay something else, fascination. Recognition, acceptance. He wasn't retreating, he wasn't running, he was watching, waiting, seeing her for what she truly was. The forest seemed to hold its breath, shadows stretching and twisting around them. She could feel her power thrumming beneath her skin, responding to the moon, to him, to the unspoken connection that surged between them. And in that moment, she knew the Omega mask could never return. Not while the moon shone, not while he watched, and not while her eyes reflected the truth of her soul. The night held them suspended, two forces, two destinies brushing against each other, as the moon bore witness to the secret that could no longer remain hidden. The council hall smelled of burning wood and damp fur, mingled with the faint tang of anticipation. Pack members gathered, shifting uneasily under the Alpha's gaze, their murmurs a low hum of expectation. She entered cautiously, head lowered, trying to appear the fragile Omega everyone expected. The full moon had exposed her secret once. Tonight, she would play the part carefully, deliberately. Report, the Alpha commanded, voice sharp and unyielding. His golden eyes swept over her like a predator assessing prey, though she knew the weight of his scrutiny carried more than judgment. It carried curiosity, suspicion, and something she dared not name. She inhaled slowly, steadying the tremor in her hands, the patrols. You failed to follow proper protocol. He interrupted, voice cold, slicing through her words. The hall went silent, all eyes on her. Carelessness will not be tolerated. You are an Omega, Mira. Your place is at the edge, not at the center. Her chest tightened, a hot flare of humiliation and frustration rising in her throat. She forced a bow, hiding the tremor in her voice. I apologize, Alpha. A few stifled murmurs of sympathy, or amusement trickled through the pack. She could feel their eyes judging, dissecting, questioning. The mask had been worn for years, yet under the Alpha's gaze, it felt brittle, fragile, cracking at the edges. He leaned back slightly, eyes narrowing. See that it does not happen again. His words were sharp, final, but the way he lingered, the faint pause before he dismissed her, carried a tension she could not ignore. He was testing her, probing, and the unspoken knowledge between them hung heavy in the air. As she retreated, her paws barely making a sound on the floor, Her chest burned, not from physical exertion, but from the weight of rejection. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to run, to vanish into the shadows where no one could see the turmoil beneath her Omega mask, and yet, a dangerous thrill stirred deep inside her. His attention, even in dismissal, had left a mark, a pulse of energy she could not control. He sees more than I want him to. He notices, even when he condemns. Outside, she leaned against the rough bark of an old tree, inhaling sharply, the cold night air stinging her lungs. The moon peeked through the clouds, silvering her hair, and she allowed herself a brief moment of defiance. The mask had fallen in part, not completely, but enough that she knew she could never hide the truth entirely. From the darkness, a rustle made her start. The Alpha emerged silently, eyes fixed on her. "You do not belong at the edge," he said quietly, almost to himself, though she heard, "not if what they whisper is true." Her heart stuttered. He knows, or at least suspects. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating. I will do better," she whispered, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside. He studied her for a long, tense moment, then turned and disappeared into the shadows of the forest, leaving her alone. Her chest burned, her pulse thrummed, and a single thought settled in her mind like wildfire. The mask could never fully protect her again, and neither could she resist the pull he now held over her. The den was quiet, wrapped in shadows and the soft scent of pine that clung to the walls. Alone at last, she sank to the floor, pressing her palms against the cold stone as if grounding herself. The council's humiliation still burned in her chest, a fierce ember that refused to die. But anger had a strange way of sharpening her focus, of calling forth the power she had long kept buried. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, letting the moonlight spill through the small opening above. Her fingers tingled, the energy beneath her skin responding to the silver glow. Slowly, cautiously, she raised her hands, palms upward, feeling the subtle hum of power thrumming beneath her skin. It was terrifying, exhilarating, deliciously dangerous. Her eyes flickered, faint silver sparks igniting behind her lids. She concentrated, willing the energy to flow, to obey her command. The air around her seemed to shimmer, leaves outside rustling as though whispering encouragement. A small spark leapt from her fingertips, dancing across the floor in arcs of moonlight. A gasp escaped her lips, not entirely fear, but wonder. I can control it, I can wield it, and yet the memory of the Alpha's gaze at the clearing the night before was still vivid. He had seen this, and she had no idea what that meant. Did he fear her, admire her, or simply acknowledge the danger she represented? A rustle at the den entrance made her freeze. Her ears twitched instinctively, but when she opened her eyes, no one was there. The forest whispered, the moonlight glimmered, and a thrill shot through her chest. He's watching. He always is, even when he pretends not to be. She lowered her hands, letting the energy settle, but a smile tugged at her lips. The Omega mask could only do so much. Inside, she was more than what anyone, including the Alpha, believed, and perhaps one day she would show him. Outside, the forest stretched silver under the full moon. Her thoughts drifted to him, to the way he had lingered in the clearing, the way his gaze had burned into her as if trying to read her soul. The slow pull between them was maddening, irresistible. She clenched her fists, feeling the power coursing through her, and allowed herself a moment of dangerous fantasy. What if he knew everything, and what if he still wanted me? A sudden crack of a branch made her freeze again. Her body tensed, eyes narrowing, instincts sharp as knives. She realized something she had always known but never embraced fully. Power came with vigilance. The strength she had awakened would not remain hidden forever, not if she hoped to survive, and not if she hoped to protect what was hers, including him. She leaned back, gaze rising to the moon, and whispered to the night, "I am more than they know. And I will not be controlled, not by fear, not by whispers, and certainly not by him." The wind shifted, rustling through the pines like a secret carried across the forest. She could feel it. Change was coming. The Alpha would have to see her for what she truly was, whether he wanted to or not. And when that day came, she would be ready. The wind carried an unfamiliar scent through the forest, sharp and unsettling. She froze, nostrils flaring as her instincts flared to life. Something, or someone, was intruding into their territory. Her paws pressed lightly against the ground, ready to move, ready to flee or fight. But this time, hiding felt wrong. The alpha was already aware. She could feel it in the vibrations of the earth, the subtle tension in the air, the way the pack stirred uneasily. He moved with purposeful authority, eyes scanning the tree line, lips pressed into a hard line. He didn't glance at her, not yet, but she sensed his focus on the threat and something else, the unspoken acknowledgement that she would have to face it too. A howl tore through the night, low and taunting, echoing across the clearing. The pack froze, every shifter instinctively bristled. From the shadows, the rival alpha emerged, imposing and cruel, eyes glinting with malice. He wasn't here for territory alone. His gaze found her, sharp and calculating. He had come for a reason, and the reason was her. Her pulse spiked. Fear clashed with something wilder, anger, defiance, a spark of the power she had only begun to control. She couldn't remain hidden anymore. Not if the rival sought to exploit her, not if the pack's safety hung in the balance. The alpha's voice cut through the tension, low and commanding. "Stand aside, Mira." Her hands twitched involuntarily, and she realized she couldn't. She wouldn't. The fire within her demanded release. Her eyes flickered faintly, silver glimmers reflecting the moonlight, betraying her inner strength. She took a step forward, heartbeat pounding, every nerve alive. The rival smirked, recognition flashing across his face. "So this is the infamous Omega." He sneered, stepping closer. "You're more interesting than they said." Her pulse thundered, and the energy beneath her skin responded. She didn't understand it fully yet, but she felt it bending toward her will. A surge of courage flared, and she stepped between him and the alpha. "You will not touch them," she said, voice low but unwavering. The words carried a weight she hadn't expected, echoing with authority. The alpha's gaze finally met hers. His eyes widened slightly, not with surprise at her audacity, but at the raw power that shimmered beneath her words. She had made a choice, one that could expose her entirely, but she didn't care. The rival laughed, cruel and cold. "So, the Omega dares to challenge me." Her hands rose instinctively, energy coiling around her like a living thing. She could feel the forest responding, the moonlight wrapping her in a silver glow, lending strength to her stance. The alpha stepped forward beside her, his presence solid and unyielding. "You misjudge her," he growled. "She is far more dangerous than you know." The rival's eyes narrowed, and the tension snapped like a drawn bowstring. The first movement of the confrontation sent shockwaves through the clearing, and she realized with a mix of fear and exhilaration, she was no longer hiding. The Omega mask had fallen, and she was ready to fight. The night was thick with the scent of rain and damp earth, a low fog curling between the trees like fingers reaching for the pack. She moved silently, alert, but the forest itself felt different tonight. Heavier, tense, as if aware of the storm brewing not just outside but within the pack. A whisper reached her first, faint and chilling. "She isn't what she seems." Her stomach knotted. Someone had spoken her secret. Someone had betrayed the trust she had painstakingly cultivated. Every step she took felt weighted, the shadows twisting around her as if conspiring to reveal her. She had hidden for years, but now the secret she had guarded with her life was exposed. The alpha emerged from the mist, his presence cutting through the fear like a blade of gold. His eyes met hers, sharp and questioning. She could see the conflict in his gaze, protectiveness clashing with doubt, authority with curiosity. "Who?" he demanded, his voice low, controlled, but carrying an edge that made the hairs on her neck rise. I don't know," she admitted, swallowing hard. Her chest burned, a mix of fear, shame, and anger. "Someone in the pack, they've spread rumors, lies." He studied her for a long moment, and she could feel the magnetic pull between them intensify, stronger than the fear, stronger than the betrayal. "They shouldn't have." He growled finally, stepping closer, the energy between them taut, electric. Her heart lurched at his nearness. She had always hidden behind the Omega mask, but now the mask was meaningless. He had seen her strength, and yet the vulnerability lingered, raw and exposed. The first raindrops fell, tapping softly against leaves and her hair, cooling the flush of heat that surged through her. She could feel the power thrumming beneath her skin, responding to the tension, to the danger, to him. "I can handle myself," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. "I've survived longer than anyone realizes. I won't be used." A flicker of admiration crossed his golden eyes, almost imperceptible, buried under his alpha authority. "I know," he murmured. His hand hovered briefly near hers, not touching, but close enough that she felt the pull of him through every nerve ending. "But now they will test you, and I will protect you, whether you want it or not." A rustle in the trees heralded the approach of their enemies, and tension erupted like lightning through the clearing. Her betrayal was no longer whispers. It was a tangible threat, tangible danger. She could feel her heart racing, the familiar surge of power within her responding to the storm outside and the storm between them. He stepped beside her, silent but solid, and the unspoken bond between them tightened. Trust untested yet growing, protection inevitable yet unspoken, attraction raw and magnetic. She realized in that moment that the betrayal had done more than expose her. It had forced the alpha to see her, to truly see her. And as the first shadowy figures of the rival pack emerged from the mist, she knew one thing: tonight she would fight, not just for herself, but for the pack, for him, and for the truth she had hidden for so long. Moonlight sliced through the mist, silver and cold, illuminating the clearing where the rival pack had gathered. Shadows danced across the forest floor, twisted and restless, as if the night itself held its breath. She stood at the edge, muscles taut, every nerve alive with anticipation. The alpha moved beside her, a silent pillar of strength. His presence was grounding, a counterpoint to the wild energy thrumming beneath her skin. Her eyes flickered involuntarily, silver sparks igniting as the moonlight caught them. She was no longer the fragile Omega. She was a force, fierce and untamed, ready to meet the threat head on. The rival alpha sneered, stepping forward with a calculated menace. "So this is the Omega," he spat, eyes narrowing. "Powerful, yes, but not enough." She didn't respond with words. Instead, she let the energy within her coil, a storm of silver light and raw will that surged through her veins. Her paws dug into the earth as the first move was made, a blur of movement and instinct. The clash erupted with a roar, teeth and claws meeting, in a cacophony of sound and fury. She darted, swift and precise, using her agility and newfound strength to outmaneuver several attackers. Every strike, every dodge, was powered by the moonlight coursing through her, a luminous force no one could ignore. Beside her, the alpha moved like a shadow, calculated and deadly, his eyes never leaving hers for more than a heartbeat. And in those fleeting moments, a silent communication passed between them, recognition, trust, understanding. They were partners in the dance of survival, bound by more than instinct, bound by something unspoken but undeniable. A rival lunged at her, claws extended, teeth bared. She met him head on, eyes blazing silver. The energy flared outward, a pulse of light that knocked him back, sending him skidding across the clearing. She realized then, fully, that the Omega mask had no place here. Her power had taken over, raw and beautiful. The battle raged, fierce and relentless, until the rival Alpha finally staggered, retreating beneath the combined force of her unleashed power and the Alpha's lethal precision. Breathing hard, she stepped back, chest heaving, adrenaline coursing like wildfire. The clearing fell silent, the forest trembling from the clash. Her eyes, still glowing faintly with the moon's reflection, met the Alpha's. He stepped closer, gaze intense, yet soft around the edges where concern and admiration mingled. "You are incredible," he murmured, voice low, almost reverent. "I should have known you were more than an Omega." Her lips curved into a small, tired smile, and she felt a warmth that had nothing to do with exertion. "I had to be," she whispered, "for the pack, and for you." He reached out, brushing a hand along her cheek, tentative yet electric. The touch sent shivers down her spine, a promise lingering in the air between them. The moon shone overhead, witness to the bond forged in battle, the recognition of strength, and the first true spark of unity between them. For the first time, she felt it fully. She was seen, acknowledged, and no longer alone. The Omega mask had fallen, and in its place was power, trust, and the undeniable pull of fate. The forest was still, bathed in the soft glow of the moon, silver mist curling around the trunks like silent witnesses. The rival pack had fled, leaving only echoes of their menace behind. She stood beside the Alpha, breathing in the crisp night air, her body exhausted but her spirit electrified. For the first time in years, she felt free. Free from masks, from whispers, from hiding the truth of her power. Her eyes, still faintly glowing with the moon's reflection, met his, and the tension that had haunted her for so long softened into something warmer, something unspoken yet undeniable. "You are extraordinary tonight," he said, voice low, threaded with awe. He took a step closer, closing the distance the world had always imposed between them. "I should have seen it sooner. I should have known you were more than an Omega." Her chest tightened, a mix of relief, pride, and something deeper she hadn't dared to name. "I never wanted you to doubt me," she admitted, voice trembling just slightly. "I only wanted to survive and protect what's ours." He reached for her hand, brushing it with a gentleness that belied the battle they had just survived. The pull between them was undeniable, like gravity itself had shifted to bind them together. "You've proven yourself," he murmured. "Not just to me, but to everyone." A soft breeze stirred, rustling the leaves, and she felt it as if the forest itself was acknowledging her, blessing the moment, her powers, her courage, her truth. They were no longer hidden. And he, the Alpha who had once dismissed her, was now the first to see her in her entirety, strength, vulnerability, and all. I never expected this," she whispered, leaning slightly into his warmth. "That you would accept me." His golden gaze softened, eyes reflecting the moonlight and the promise of something more. "Acceptance isn't enough," he said quietly, voice thick with emotion. "I want you, all of you, power, secrets, everything, and I will stand by you always." Her breath caught. She had spent so long hiding, so long fearing rejection, fearing exposure, fearing that love and strength could never coexist in her. And yet here he was Alpha and protector, observer and partner, acknowledging everything she was and, more importantly, everything she could become. The moon reached its zenith, bathing them in silver light, and she let herself finally look into his eyes fully, unguarded. In that gaze, she saw a recognition, respect, trust, and the first true spark of destiny. A bond forged not by circumstance, but by choice, by heart, and by soul. She smiled softly, a thrill of relief and joy flooding her chest. "Then, let's face the future together," she said. He returned her smile, and for the first time, the tension and masks that had defined their lives were gone. Only the pull between them, undeniable and eternal, remained. Their eyes met again, and in that silent exchange, fate was sealed. The forest sighed around them, the moon bearing witness. For the Omega who had pretended, and the Alpha who had finally seen, this was only the beginning.